Hi, I'm Donald Davidson. I'm the historian for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and this is part of the series called Stories with Donald. The big wheel, Mickey Rooney, none of the principals ever came to the track. And in sometime in about 1978 or 79, I've had a lot of pinch me moments in my life, but in 1978 or 79, I was having lunch at what was then the Speedway Motel with an Indianapolis Star feature writer named Tom Keating, who did really humanitarian stories, and that's a whole other story. Anyway, we would have lunch occasionally. We were having lunch. And so one of the ladies, a lady named Rosemary Hensley, she said, "Oh, did you see Mickey Rooney? He's so cute." And I said, "Mickey Rooney? Mickey Rooney's here?" And she said, "Yes, he's having lunch in the they've got a special dining room, and he's in there with Red Dellon, the car dealer." And I said, "Well, I know Red Dellon. I've done commercials for him." And so anyway, I started talking to Tom Keating. I said, "You know what? Mickey Rooney starred in The Big Wheel. He was Billy Coy. And I don't think he'd ever been to the track. I wonder if maybe we could work it out that we could take him around for a lap." So somehow or other, I think, I said to Rosemary, I said, "Would it be okay if I went in and just talked to Red Dellon?" So she came back and said, "Yes, come on in." And so I got to meet Mickey Rooney, and I said, if we can work this out, would you like to take a ride around the track? He said, "Oh, yes, yes." And I amazed me, because I thought they would be on a time constraint or he wouldn't care. And because I'd got the impression that The Big Wheel was just a film that he made that he didn't really care about. And in fact, the story was that he had been, just a couple of years before this, or 4 or 5 years before, he'd been MGM's top moneymaker. And Louis B. Mayer, MGM, just thought of Mickey Rooney as his son. Well, at some point, after the Andy Hardy series had become really, there'd been several of them, he had an opportunity to do Andy Hardy on the radio. And so he went to Louis B. Mayer, and Louis B. Mayer said, "Mickey, I don't think that would be a good idea, so basically no." And Mickey Rooney was just a bit of a bandy roosty, and he said, "All right, I want out of my contract." And Louis B. Mayer said, "Well, Mickey, you owe us some pictures." And so what he did was to make, I think he made 14 films in 1 year. And he said, "I worked it out that I would go in and probably do all my stuff in 2 or 3 weeks and then go to the next one, and they would shoot around me." And so, I mean, he told me this, plus it's in print in a couple of books. I think he did 2 autobiographies. And he said, "I just wanted to get out of my contract." And he said, "I made 14 films in 1 year, and some of them were stinkers. And one of the stinkers was The Big Wheel. Although actually it's not too bad." Well, so Red Dellon's son, Russ Dellon, did not have his own dealership yet, but he eventually would be a local dealer here. And he was driving the limo. And so I called Al Blemker, who was the director of publicity for the track, and said, "You know, would it be okay if we take a lap?" And things were a little bit different in those days, so it was easily done. And so we got into the limo, and Mickey Rooney sat in the back seat with a fellow named George, who didn't seem to really care, a manager type, I guess. And then Tom Keating and I had the little pull-down seats, so we were looking backwards, but straight at Mickey Rooney. And so we went around, and we went through turn 2 and down the backstretch. And Mickey Rooney says, as we're going down the backstretch, he says to George, "Oh," he said, "you see those barns? That's where Vukovich went out." I said, "That's right. How did you know that?" And he said, "Oh, well, that was famous. I remember that." I said, "Well, that surprises me because," I said, "I got the impression that when you made the big wheel, you didn't really care about racing." He said, "Oh, yeah." He said, "Yeah, no, I follow it." And he said, I know about the Foyts and the Unsers." And he said, "This girl, what's her name? She does a hell of a job." I said, "Janet Guthrie." He said, "Yeah, Janet Guthrie. She does a hell of a job." And I thought, I couldn't believe this. So anyway, the magic moment is we're going further down the backstretch, and we're about to enter turn 3. And I'm sitting on this little seat looking straight back, and I've got Mickey Rooney here, and I've got the track very slowly going by with the turn 2 sweeps disappearing. And I'm thinking, you know what? I am looking at the exact angle that you see in the movie with Mickey Rooney driving the race car with back projection. And other than the cameraman in 1949, I'm the only human being that's ever seen this particular view. And I don't know if that means anything, but that would have been, 40 years later? Or my math isn't very good, 30 years later. But anyway, that was just a very special moment for me. And and I said, "Is it true that you never came to the track?" He said, "I came here after the movie came out." He said, "I came here to do a publicity shot." And so when he rode around the track on this day that I just described, that was only the second time he'd ever been to the track.